Okay, welcome everybody. We are going to get started. So, hello. What a great crowd. Thank you for coming to tonight's forum, Safeguarding Democracy, a community forum with state legislators. I'm Cindy Rowe, chair of the Brookline Democratic Town Committee, which works to sustain and grow a grassroots movement in Brookline to engage residents in the democratic process and elect democratic candidates to local, state, and federal office. We are a co-sponsor of tonight's event along with Activist Evenings, an indivisible group whose goal is to enable people to work together to defend democracy and each other by working on campaigns, joining protests, and sponsoring educational forums. We want to thank Big Brookline Interactive Group for recording tonight's event, and we want to thank our elected officials who are joining us this evening, and Tom Halleck, treasurer of the Brookline Dems and co-chair of Force Multiplier, who is serving as our moderator. We're hosting this forum together tonight because our political system at the national level is in crisis. Our democracy is at risk, and vulnerable people all over the country are at risk. This is not a time for business as usual. And tonight, we want to discuss what role our state elected political leaders can play to help defend democracy and protect all residents of Massachusetts. We know we are not without power in Massachusetts. We can take concrete steps to protect the health and welfare of our residents and be an example for the nation. We can ally with like-minded states to set high regional standards in areas under attack, like the environment. We can set up legal defense funds to help protect immigrants. These are just some of the ways we can resist our national government's slide into authoritarianism. There are many more. We know that our state Democratic leadership is very aware of what is happening right now and is working on ways to respond to Trump initiatives. We look forward to seeing this becoming a robust reality. Tom will be presenting questions about specific areas of concern that are front and center now due to federal actions, and we ask that our elected leaders address the questions in the context of this larger crisis. We will be collecting questions from the audience on index cards, so if you have questions, please write them down, and volunteers will be circulating to pick them up. To our elected officials, we look to you for leadership, and we need your bold action now to defend our rights and our democracy. Thank you for coming here to share your ideas and to also tell us how we can help you in these most challenging times.
Thanks, Cindy, and thanks to all of you for being here with us tonight, and to all of the people in the audience for joining as well. I think it's easy to see the federal government as being the only political stage right now, and Trump as the only political actor, but there's also a lot of power at state and municipal levels, and we also all have power that we can exercise as citizens and as constituents, and that's really the spirit of tonight's event. So if we want to defend our communities, the environment, and our democracy, it's on us. So as Cindy said, we have questions, 4 questions here, and we'll ask each of our reps to respond. If you have nothing to add, please pass, and we can move on to the next one. Senator Green, perhaps I can start with you since you're to my left here.
Okay.
So the first question is about protecting our essential services. The Trump administration and their congressional enablers are attacking federal funding for health care, education, and infrastructure, among other things. How can we develop additional revenue streams to maintain essential services in the face of these cuts? How can we ensure that the wealthy and large corporations are paying their fair share to help offset the federal cuts? First?
Well, I wish I had all the answers, how to raise money in a time when people want to spend less. I think one of the issues is we really don't know what the extent of that raising money is. We're certainly looking for ways at the Senate. I'm really proud of the Senate. They formed a Senate committee, Senate 2025, that responds to the Trump administration. They set up a committee. I'm on that committee of steering and policy. And as we get into the questions about reproductive health and climate, I'd be happy to share and immigration, the things that we are doing. Right now, we passed a budget that was okay, because there's a lot of cuts, and then they go to court and they change the cuts. So we're not really sure. I would say that our problems are going to be greater if the congressional budget passes and it eats into our Medicaid funds. The amount of people that will be uninsured in Massachusetts is awful. And where that money will come from, in addition to saving our climate and doing all those other things, I know that the legislature, I think both in the Senate and the House, are committed to providing health care for people as they always have. And if, in fact, we find that there's so many people that are uninsured, that are going to our hospitals, you understand our hospitals are suffering.
People are claiming in the back that they can't hear.
Oh.
I don't know, those mics, I don't believe they do move. So
Oh, better? Oh. Do I have to repeat it word for word? Okay, I'll do the gist, okay? I won't change the thought, but I'll do the gist. We don't know what funds we're going to need, because we have passed a budget, this year's budget. The Senate and the House roughly similar amounts of money. They're different in what they spend it on. And it was based on our revenues, which are still coming in. And we don't have a definite answer on what the cuts will be. If, in fact, the congressional budget that passed the House gets passed and something similar, it will result in a tremendous cut to our Medicaid. And that will result in many people being uninsured. Our hospitals are struggling, and if people are uninsured, they're going to be using the emergency room. So they're going to be exacerbating a situation that's already exacerbated. So I would say that we will be looking at ways of raising revenues or filling those gaps at another time. And I think our next budget cycle won't be as good as this one. I promise I'll come back if I get invited and talk about the bad news. Right now, the revenues that we're dealing with, we're able to have somewhat of a normal budget. But I will say that with regard to school aid and all of those things, the budget that eventually is passed between the Senate and the House, if revenues decline 6 months from now, the governor has the right to come in and make cuts, 9C cuts to that budget. So I think right now we're looking at jumping, but we haven't gotten there yet. So I think this is a question that we'll need to answer as we go along.
Tommy, do you have anything to add about that? How concerned are you about protecting essential services, and what do you think can happen at the legislative level?
So in my opinion, the most important employee in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in standing up to Donald Trump is Governor Maura Healey. And the second most important is Attorney General Andrea Campbell. They're both up for re-election next year. We are as well.
Your time's up, Tommy.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did I have?
Well played.
That's right.
She works for him.
I had more time.
And so I think it's really important in all of the things we talk about tonight to consider the reality that if Governor Healey doesn't win re-election or Attorney General Campbell doesn't win re-election, we are in much worse shape. And that it's not just Brookline who gets to vote in those elections. Bourne and Billerica and all these other communities do as well. And so it's really easy for us to frame these questions like, why aren't we moving to the left of the leftmost idea, and won't that save our Commonwealth? And the reality is, even if we had the votes in the legislature to do that, we would lose the corner office for it. Because it turns out that while I share the viewpoint of just about everybody in this room on just about every issue, the median voter doesn't, right? And so if we're serious about our Commonwealth standing up to President Trump, we need to figure out how to support the Andrea Campbell and the Governor Maura Healey agendas, not our own. And Governor Healey has been clear. It is about affordability. And so when we talk about raising taxes, we've got to put that in context of affordability. And it's easy to say, oh, sure, the company will pay. We won't pay. Do you say the same thing when we talk about tariffs? I'll bet you don't. When we talk about tariffs, you say, of course the customer will pay. And so I'm not saying any particular bill on revenue is good or bad or will or won't happen. But I am saying we need to be really thoughtful about it in the context of possible dramatic Medicaid cuts or other major cuts, and in the context of the 2026 races that we absolutely, as Democrats, have to hold on to if we are going to have both our best left and our best right to stand up to Donald Trump.
Bill, what's your perspective on this? Where are we vulnerable, and what's the best path forward here?
I'm done too. That's great. So I appreciate the question, Tom, and I think everyone's bringing up great points, and I think the most important is we need to work in collaboration with our federal partners. We need to work in collaboration with our local leaders as well, city and town. And in regards to Medicaid, I mean, there's no way our state, the governor has been very clear that we can't fund that. And as the senator mentioned, the emergency rooms will be packed if people aren't insured. My wife is an emergency department nurse, so I know she wants to come home to see her 2- and 4-year-old. So I think what we can do in the state legislature, and something that I prioritized was the earmarks that I could bring back to the 10th Suffolk District, and that was for the food pantries in my district and for my seniors in the district. And, we need to keep prioritizing SNAP and public housing. And we need to make sure we're taking care of those that are most vulnerable. I think the House is being very careful with this budget this time around, and every time around. And we're just trying to wait and see almost. But I think right now what we can do is take care of those in our district, and that's what I'm trying to do, is take care of those that are most vulnerable.
Thank you. Greg, what's your perspective on this, particularly in the area of healthcare, and how do we protect the health access of people in our state during this time?
Well, it's a very challenging question, and I don't think any of us, either at local, state, or federal level, have answers to that. I think that we have to play it as it goes. Like Senator Cream said, we in the House side as well as the Senate are not sure what we're really looking at. If the senators in Congress are able to withstand this onslaught of the House bill, which passed by just one vote, and plans to cut almost $1 trillion of Medicaid spending in the next 10 years, we're going to be in a lot of trouble if they don't stand up to that. It does look like there's a little bit of a chance that there might be a little bit of pushback. We've got some moderate Republicans who are up for re-election. Unfortunately, their unlikely allies are some of the most radical conservatives who also don't want to vote for it because they think it's not harsh enough. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. I had bigger hopes in the House, actually, because of that tighter margin. But suffice to say that if we do see these cuts, the Medicaid program, as has been already mentioned, is very significantly a huge revenue for the state of Massachusetts. I didn't even realize until this is my first year, right? But seeing the revenue and where it comes from, almost 14 billion, that's with a B, $14 billion comes back from the federal government for Medicaid reimbursement. So the state pays, because it's a federal state program, we get back almost half of what we spend, or a little bit more than half of what we spend, and that's $14 billion out of a $62 billion budget. So we're talking about a huge slice of our revenue. And so if we see the billion or $1.5 billion that's apparently in the offing, that could affect 200 to 300,000 patients losing Medicaid. And of course, it will affect the emergency rooms. It'll affect the primary care physicians and the hospitals, which are already not in great shape. And I've been seeing that up close. You add to that not just the budget cuts, but the impact of the grants being cut for our health, research enterprises. You see the potential impacts of the tariffs. So we have an economic downturn potentially coming at us. The good news is that we have had a lot of income from the Fair Share Amendment. That is a very good thing. We have some good reserves. So I think that with the help of the Senate and the House together working and being careful about how we manage the finances, hopefully we can come up with ways to prioritize the most vulnerable in our communities. Health obviously is at the top of that, and maintain a quality of life in Massachusetts that is what we all strive for. But I would also agree with Tommy's point that we have to have the governor in our corner, and we need to maintain the support for a Democratic administration.
Great, thank you. Kevin, what concerns you most when you think about the budget and the impact on your constituents? What are your concerns and what are your ideas on it?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Cindy, for having us here, and thank you, everyone, for coming out. My name is Kevin Honan. I represent Precinct 13 and 14A. Anyone? Oh, sorry about that. My name is Kevin Honan, and I represent Precinct 13 and 14A. Is anyone here from Precinct 13, 14A?
Say whatever you want.
Oh, we do have one? Where do we have one? We have one?
Yeah.
Hi. Thanks for coming. No, we have a very big problem in our country, and we have a very big problem here in Massachusetts because we're based on eds and meds, right? Research, hospitals, universities. Harvard has taken a terrible beating, and we're a compassionate, caring society. We have courage up here, too, so we will fight to where we can, but with these massive cuts from Washington, it's going to be very hard. So we, over the years, have created this rainy day fund. So if things get really bad, and it's hard to create a rainy day fund and we protect it. As we all know, there are so many worthy causes fighting for funding here, from healthcare, education, transportation, that how do you fund a rainy day fund where there's not a lot of people fighting for that when they're fighting for health care? But we created that rainy day fund many years ago when the economy completely fell apart. When one of your neighbors, Mike Dukakis, was running for president, when he came back, we were in a very dangerous situation where we raised the income tax from 5.0 to 6.25, and 40 legislators lost their jobs. So we know about the rainy day fund and would use it if we were in a desperate situation. There are other efforts by labor unions to increase taxation on companies that may be putting funding in offshore accounts to try to increase their taxation. So we would look at that. But this is a very difficult situation. The population that is lower income, that depends on us for services, for food, daycare, education, everything else. So we will work together. This delegation works very closely together. We all like each other. Sometimes people fight senators, right? House members, not here. We all get along. We have so much respect for her. So we will look, and we also want to have a discussion with you too, where it's not just us talking at you. You need to be more informal, where you feel you can ask us, or not even ask us what we think about things, but tell us what you think about things, okay? Because we're here for the school committee. We go before them, the Community Development Corporation, and a couple of other groups. But this is the largest group that the delegation has spoken in front of, and we'll be around a little while afterwards. Bill has the 2 young kids at home. He probably has to get home. and Tommy has the 2 young kids that need help with their homework, and Tommy's a PhD, so he can help them. The rest of us, when the kids hit the 5th grade, we can't help them with math anymore. Math today is so complicated, but Tommy can help them. So that my opinion is we have a very difficult situation coming down the road here in Massachusetts. The president just doesn't appreciate any of the research, helping people, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all these research projects. So you might see a lot of people heading to London and China to do their work there.
That's already happening. That's really happening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you also for lifting up where you're from. I think that's helpful and maybe an oversight in this.
Yeah, we'll do it the next
And Tommy, we don't need to hear about. Greg, you're new in the seat. I wonder if you can just tell us who you represent, beginning with Precinct 5, perhaps?
Yep. So, hi everybody. Greg Schwartz, 12th Middlesex District, Ruth Balzer 2.0, and basically I'm representing in Brookline, southern part of Newton, but in Brookline, precincts 5, not 5A, 13A, not 13, 14, not 14A, and 15. So if you can follow that, I'm right behind you.
I already lost you.
And Bill, what about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bill McGregor. I'm the 10th Suffolk State Representative. I won in a special election in 2023. This is my second term. And so I cover majority of West Roxbury, about half of Rosendale, 3 precincts in Jamaica Plain, and then a precinct in the 16th precinct in South Brookline.
Great. And Tommy's got the
Yeah,
rest.
well, for those who don't use precincts, because some folks have no idea what that meant, I represent North Brookline, so Washington Square, Brookline Village, and, toward Kenmore Square is the easiest way to say it.
So I grew up in Brookline, went to school in Brookline, and I represent all of Brookline, so.
So true. So true. Okay, next question. Tommy, we'll start with you on the environment. And the Trump administration has really kind of declared war on the environment and programs to address climate change, promoting fossil fuel use, abandoning protections for clean air and water, as well as gutting the EPA. The list goes on. You know it well. What can the state legislature do to resist these measures? And if you could comment on any of the specific legislation that's up now, the Make Polluters Pay, or an act relative to a tactical transition to affordable, clean thermal energy, which I know Cindy is one of the sponsors of.
Yeah, I will certainly let Senator Cream talk about her bill. In some ways, on environmental policy, the U.S. is split east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, right? If you think about where the national parks are, by land area, there's very little east of the Mississippi. It's all out west. So we have very little that we can do about that. And New England in its entirety has one coal-fired power plant in New Hampshire. And so there's not a whole lot we can do there. We are making progress, not as quickly as I would certainly like, in replacing natural gas electricity generation with renewables. We hit headwinds on offshore wind, clearly under President Trump, and they're federal waters. So there's really not much we can do there. And so we need to double down on solar in the meantime. There's some conversation about nuclear. I think it's a fool's errand. I think that we'll all be cooked by the time that comes around. Not everyone agrees with that. And then we just saw the governor delay by 2 years our transition to electric vehicles. And that's because, well, they're not selling as quickly as folks had hoped, in part because folks aren't buying as many cars at all, foreseeing a Trump economy that's turning down. And so it's hard to move forward on environmental policy through commerce when all of commerce may well crater. There's a lot of concern about Q3 and Q4 2025, and then into 2026. It's really hard to make a big purchase, whether it's heat pumps for your home or solar panels or an electric car, if you're not so sure you're still going to be employed in 6 months. And so it is a challenging time. Massachusetts has been and will continue to be a leader on environmental issues. My hope is that we find ways to continue moving forward amidst the federal backsliding to provide a path for other like-minded states and for the next federal administration. Knock on wood. And again, it has to be in the context of affordability. Folks had unbelievably difficult heating bills right around February of 2025, and suddenly people started wondering if we should be spending the money on energy efficiency programs. I think we should. I know for a fact they pencil out over time, but there's real pressure even in keeping the energy efficiency programs that we have. So it's not an easy time. The environment tends to be an issue folks worry about when times are good. When times are bad, it falls behind things like civil rights. It falls behind things like people working for a living. I hope that we don't push it too far behind, but I understand why that happens. And so folks who don't know, I worked as an electricity consultant for 10 years, forcing the retirement of coal-fired power plants for a living against the wishes of their owners. So I've got skin in this game. I've got expertise here. I will continue finding ways to do that work, but know that it is not, it's not just Trump who's pushing back against that, but when in the face of a bad economy, it's very difficult even to find state-level politics to move forward on environmental issues.
Senator Crean, do you want to make a few comments on
Sure.
your bill?
Well, I also chair a committee on climate change and global warming, and we have done several hearings, one to try and get our hands around exactly how much money has been cut, and there has been a lot of cuts in the area of climate. But the worst is the fact that the subsidies, the federal subsidies, are going to be gone. And if that happens, the incentive for these companies to do this work on climate, it's a huge problem. But the bill that you mentioned, and thank you for, it's Senate 2249, it's an act relative to tactical transition to affordable clean thermal energy. So we do know that we've made some progress on clean heat while trying to protect residents from rising gas prices. This bill offers a solution of providing a framework for a strategic, least-cost transition to clean heat. The bill simultaneously protects ratepayers and promotes compliance with the Massachusetts climate obligations. So we need to move along. We need to keep encouraging our gas companies, and we have had the help of the executive department encouraging, including the gas companies, in a way to move forward, not to just replace pipes, but to fix them in the interim, and to look towards different kinds of things like geothermal and network thermal or heat pumps. And I know this is a bill that will do that, but again, these things there will be a huge problem if, in fact, the subsidies are not there. The other thing that the Committee on Steering and Policy that I'm on is looking at, and you've probably been reading the cutbacks to FEMA. And that's a cutback to Sources for Disaster Relief and the Resiliency Trust Fund. And we saw a cutback to the people that are working for FEMA. It is a serious problem if you have floods. So the issue of FEMA is an issue that the Senate, it's a nonpartisan issue. We have both Republicans and Democrats representing districts that care about fishing, care about water, care about the rising tides, and they're worried what will happen. So we're looking for a dedicated funding source for this relief and resiliency fund. So there are a lot of things. And lastly, some of this is going to have to go back to the communities. So we have the MV Plus communities, cities and towns would have to adopt some stretch resiliency building codes because it's not going to only be the state that's going to do that. I concur that we do have push back on our environmental policies. But the good news is that one of the reasons that people are not buying EV cars is that there aren't enough charging stations. There are, so it's not only that they're afraid. I chair this committee, and my husband and I put in a heat pump this year, and I went to buy a new car, and I said, well, I visit my daughter in New York. What am I going to do? How am I going to drive there? And I got a plug-in hybrid. And I did that because there just are not enough charging stations. So that's something important. We put that in our budget. We need to, and you look around this state of Massachusetts, a lot of people don't have garages, driveways, anywhere to park their cars to put in a charging station. There is work being done. It was amazing. You can put a charging station in a street light. They have charging stations coming off from street lights. Unless we invest in that and we focus on that, we are going to be behind no matter what the president does. So we need to move on that front as well. I refuse to be down on it, so I'm hoping that we can move along. But if the tax credit's gone, that's it.
Well, we appreciate both of your leadership in this issue. Bill, do you have anything to add on this topic?
Yes, and I agree. I refuse to be down on this issue as well. We have so many great environmental advocates and leaders in our state. So I am actually on the Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy Committee, which I am excited to be on. It's my first session to be on, and I know a lot of the environmental and energy bills will be going, to my committee. And prior to myself being a state representative, I worked for City Councilor Matt O'Malley. I was a Boston City Councilor. And Matt was the chair of the environmental committee for the city of Boston. And there we were able to pass paperless pay stubs. We were able to obviously pass the plastic bag ban, which I think everyone knows. I'm sorry, the paperless pay stubs. So there's about 17,000 city employees, and they were still receiving their pay stubs. And we were just shocked by that. And we figured out at the time, I think it was going to save $1.90 per person, but there's 17,000 employees that are receiving this. So I was kind of surprised that the city still did that. We obviously worked on the plastic bag ban, which is self-explanatory. The net zero carbon emissions for large buildings over 20,000 square feet, and protecting wetlands. So this is something that I have, worked on in the past, and I'm looking forward to, being on the state side and hearing about more legislation that's or hearing about the bills that are coming to us in that committee. Another thing to mention is I'm really excited for all of us to analyze. The governor recently filed her energy affordability bill, and then her environmental bond bill as well. So I think we're all excited about looking through that and just seeing how we can continue to strengthen our energy policies here in Massachusetts. I'm trying to think of what else I have. And then regarding the promoting, I know Rep. Rotolo mentioned this earlier, but promoting electrification. I mean, and I think they both talked about the heat pumps. We need to continue to promote that, and we need to continue to promote EV cars. Obviously, EV car charging stations, and electrification of public transportation. So, sorry.
Thanks. Greg, do you have anything to add on this topic?
Well, I do have a couple thoughts, but I certainly defer to my more senior colleagues who've been working on this issue, especially Senator Cream and Rep. Vitolo. I do think that we have to think about this as, as a state level. What can we do at the state level? Because the federal level obviously is not going to help us, at least not for the next 3 years. So, so many of the potential steps forward with EVs, with putting out more, infrastructure for EVs. A lot of money was coming from the federal level. Their resistance, their hostility to our clean energy wind approach is really going to be a problem, and there'll be major headwinds, as was said. But that doesn't mean that at the state level and in the regional level we can't be working hard to do what we can to make progress. And being in New England, obviously we have like-minded states around us that I think we should definitely be working with, and I think that the governor is already very actively trying to do that. And then in the state level, we can do things, right? We can work on our gas transition, just like Senator Cream is leading the way. We're every year we're putting money into new gas lines, and many of folks perhaps in the audience, I know Brookline has a very active Mothers Out Front group, are pushing for a more realistic, more wise way of approaching gas needs and fix some of the leaks, but try to put some of that money into electrification and not waste. Don't put bad money, good money after bad. We can continue doing that. That's not going to take money away from individuals. That money is being spent. We can just redirect it. We can also continue to work on resiliency, like, again, Senator Cream was mentioning. She has a great bill trying to get municipalities to have the ability to receive grants for resiliency projects locally if they meet certain code changes in their municipal ordinances. We're going to see more and more of these weather events, flooding. We can do the work at the local level to try to harden and protect ourselves from that. I'm also mindful of other things that, why do we care about climate change? Obviously, it's got a lot of effects on us, but it's largely health. Well, what can we do with our state policies to improve our public health through better policies on clean water and clean air? There's a number of bills that I've been happy to co-sponsor that are working on those. So I think that we can continue the fight. We can continue moving forward. We obviously have to appreciate the realities. Losing a federal partner is challenging, but before the Biden administration, there was something called the Trump 1.0 administration. So we are continuing to deal with the situation, but we can move forward at the state level and at the local level. So I hope that we can be encouraged to continue to do the work that we need to do.
A final word on this topic?
Many years ago, I worked for ABCD before I was elected to the legislature, and we were ahead of our time in ABCD with weatherization, energy conservation, water conservation. I'm sorry. I'm usually not quiet. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, I worked for ABCD in the early 80s, and we did water conservation, energy conservation, for people who were eligible for fuel assistance. They were entitled to a new oil burner or an oil burner tune-up. We taught them, and in fact, I taught in this building, so if you were eligible for fuel assistance in Brookline, I would have given you a weatherization seminar on how to weatherize your windows and doors, low flow, shower heads, that kind of stuff. That was Action for Boston Community Development. I also attended an event today with Ed Markey where he saw an opportunity to work with bipartisan with senators from red states like Georgia and West Virginia, where they receive a lot of tax credits for renewable energy, the windmills and solar panels. So he was thinking he had an opportunity, even though the president seems to have a commitment to gas and oil. Ed Markey thought there was an opportunity to salvage some of the tax credit legislation to protect renewable energy. I would also point out a couple of bills in Massachusetts, specifically in addition to Senator Cream's bill. House 3501 is Rep. Haggerty's bill, which I'm a co-sponsor of with many of my friends here. supporting climate progress through sustainable development offshore wind, seeks to increase our supply of renewable energy and keep Massachusetts on the track for its long-term emissions reduction targets. And I also, I'm not new to this, I wrote letters in support of windmills down the Cape at a time when Senator Kennedy was against them. I've always been a supporter of windmills. The other bill I'd point out is Tommy Vitolo's bill, 3580, an act creating pathways towards net zero neighborhoods, which
It's a good bill.
it is a good bill, and I'm proud to be a
not biased.
co-sponsor of Tommy's bill. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, one of the ideas of this event tonight was just to create kind of more of a dynamic between our elected officials and all of you. We want to hear from them, but we also want to hear from you. So if you do have questions, I don't know if you're collecting any, Cindy, but people have cards. You can start sending them up there, and I think we're about halfway through the issues we wanted to talk about. So I think we'll take maybe 10 minutes on each of the other two topics, and then we'd like to take some questions from all of you. So send them up. Cindy will need time to curate the questions so that we have some good questions to take up next. Okay, so Kevin, I wonder if you could start off on the next topic, which is about immigration. And we see what's going on in California right now, and we see the National Guard being mobilized by a president to enforce his immigration ideas. And there's so many immigrant communities in Massachusetts, plus thousands of foreign students who are quite vulnerable to this administration. We've seen ICE raids around the state, including here in Brookline. Can you speak a little bit to what you think can be done to defend these communities in this moment, and specifically make any comments about the Safe Communities Act, dignity not deportation, and other things that are before the legislature?
Yeah, well, it's an issue that really has upset a loving and caring state, and municipalities that have so much diversity, like the Alston-Brighton section of my district, where people are being picked up, which is upsetting everyone. I remember my father was from County Clare in Ireland, and he came here in 1949, and he was drafted into the United States Army with all of his friends from Ireland. You know, the thought was you could become a citizen quicker too, and they didn't. They all had to wait 5 years. They didn't become citizens quicker. But when I would drive around with my father and we'd go by the CVS parking lot in Alston and see all the folks from Brazil who were there waiting to be picked up to go on carpentry jobs and other jobs, he would always say, "Those are my people." So this is a country of immigrants. It says on the Statue of Liberty, "Give us your tired, your poor, your humble masses." So what we're witnessing here is something that's very much opposed to everything we stand for as a welcoming, loving, caring society. So people are very upset about it. And we do have some legislation. You mentioned a few of them there. Rep. Cruz and Souza have the Safe Communities Act, which I'm a co-sponsor of, bars local law enforcement from asking about immigration status, ensures that undocumented immigrants are granted due process. Rep. Rogers and Frank Moran's bill, an act ensuring access to equitable representation. And then there's Rep. Barber and Rogers, an act relative to immigration and detention and collaboration agreements. There was Trump wishes to carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. So he's coming at this from a very different place than I would come from, and that many of us would come from. We believe immigrants are part of the greatness of our country and deserve to be able to remain here. That would be my comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Greg, would you like to speak to that?
Well, I think that Rep. Honan spoke very, very, I think, movingly just now about what I was about to say as well. I mean, we're all children of immigrants. You know, my family came in the late 1800s, but you know, wherever you come from, you know, with a very small exception, everybody living in our country are immigrants, and we all know that. And it's un-American, basically, what the president is doing. It's outrageous, and it's from a playbook that we all know too well. I think that we all know the quote. First they came for, in this case, the immigrants, then they came for the others, and then they came for me, and there was nobody there to defend me. And that's really, this is the beginning of a really unseemly, evil attempt to divide and demean members of our community who have been key parts of our economy, key parts of our identity, key parts of our strength. And so, unfortunately, we see what just happened in LA. I would love it if people power was able to prevent injustice occurring, but I'm afraid that plays right into the playbook. We saw very minimal violence before the National Guard was called in, and that was simply a pretext, right? So we have to be smart. We have to be careful about this. I don't know how you fight masked men coming and breaking windows of cars and pulling people out. I don't know if many of you saw the videos that were circulating that were filmed by some children on their school bus as they were watching somebody being pulled out of their vehicle, and you could hear some of their comments and their fear in their voices. It's absolutely heartbreaking and un-American. So, I'm sure all of us are on these bills. I'm on all the bills that Rep. Honan mentioned. Unfortunately, bills take a while to get enacted. They're really expressions of our goals, but it's really going to come down to our leaders in the executive branch. The Attorney General has been wonderful, speaking out and bringing lawsuit. Our civil society, which is what really protects us and protects all democracies. Our courts, the lawyers in our courts, the ACLU, these organizations really need our support right now because they're doing the heavy lifting of bringing the cases that are going up and getting the proper result at the federal courts. The fear that I have, and I'm sure many of you share, is that once it goes up to the final arbiter, the Supreme Court, that will have reversals of a very activist court right now that has no idea about the value of stare decisis and precedent and constitutionality. So I'm afraid I can't be quite as upbeat as I was on the environment bill, on the environment issue. This is a really tough time, and I think that we have to be smart, as I said. Don't take the bait, but speak out when we can. Trust in our institutions at the state level to and our civil society to do their role, and hope against hope that enough people will be disgusted and turned off by this that we'll see some changes. Maybe some of the town meetings that these Republican congressmen have to go to every now and then will turn their minds around. But it's a very dark time right now, and I'm sorry to not be more upbeat.
Appreciate your honesty. Bill?
Yeah, I have to agree with my colleagues. This is a very sad time when you see even anyone taken, and we've all seen the Milford student and the tough student taken, and it's just, they were innocent. They didn't do anything, and it's just, this is a really, as Rep. Schwartz said, this is a very dark time for America. This isn't what our immigrants came here for. So it's it does seem like Trump, has the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in his crosshairs, and one thing that it reminds me, one thing that it really hit home. So I put together a senior citizen Red Sox watch party at a local pub in my district, the Core Pub in West Roxbury, and I got the World Series trophies there, and everyone was going to see them, and I brought them into the kitchen to show some of the staffers, but the thing is they said that, they don't want pictures. They don't want anyone to know they're there. That's just not right. And it's just, that was, it gave me chills. So, I am on the Safe Communities Act. I'm on the immigrant, the fund for lawyers, for those that can't afford lawyers, and then preventing local law enforcement to be able to work with ICE as well. I'm on that. There are over 7,000 bills. I will go over to see if there's any that have been mentioned that I'm not on, but obviously I am supportive, and I just don't like to see anyone treated poorly.
Thank you. Tommy, how do you see it?
Yeah, this problem has been teed up since before I had the right to vote. Democrats and Republicans in our United States Congress have absolutely failed on immigration for decades. For decades. And we've all kind of known it. Look, there was a point when we had a Democratic president, a Democratic House, and 59 Democratic U.S. senators. And we didn't fix it. And that's the we, capital D Democrats, all of us. We failed. We failed when we had an opportunity. And there have been other opportunities. It's unfortunate. And the unfortunate reality is there are people who came here of their own volition. There are people who didn't have a say in the matter because they were young children who were taken to America for a better life in search of these things that we say the best Americans represent: hard work, taking chances, building a business, finding success, improving yourself, being part of a community. These are all the things we say we value as a country. And the folks who do it best are the immigrants. And we have not, over the span of decades, made it a priority to legally and lawfully welcome them. And so Trump shows up, and it's a wonderful wedge opportunity to do what he loves to do the most, which is be cruel to people. And that's exactly what he's doing. Sure, the ICE agents put masks over themselves because they're ashamed and they're afraid, but it's part of building up this terror. It's part of making sure that every immigrant, whether they work in a kitchen or anywhere else, is afraid to come into the light. And it is awful. The Safe Communities Act, I think, would nibble at the edges there. But the fact of the matter is, federal law enforcement has the ability to move through our state, and we at the state level cannot stop them. We cannot. The U.S. Constitution is supreme, and federal law supersedes state constitution and state law. So there's not a lot that we can do in a direct sense. And it is. It's terrifying, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Senator?
Not a good topic. So let's talk a few things that we are doing. So one thing is that we have, at least I assume in our joint budgets we will pass, raising the salary for lawyers who are defending the issues with immigration. There aren't enough lawyers. The funding, the pay is below any other state. We have in our budget to raise that, and we hope that we have more lawyers because we need that in our fighting due process. We also have considering legislation protecting the rights of students who are immigrants or English language learners. Many of the rights are guaranteed through federal guidelines, but this legislation consider prohibiting discrimination in public schools based on disability or immigration or citizenship. So we have looked at that, and we want to ensure that there will be communication between school personnel and parents. It's extremely frightening. And these children, our Constitution requires a public education. They're here. We need to make that education easier for them. And in that regard, we are doing that. My own personal feeling is that I'm a lawyer, and I'm aghast at the rights of due process that are being denied people. I'm all for getting rid of the drug addicts and the felons and the gangs, and they're such a small number. All these kids they pick up, you think they're drug addicts and all that. I'm for getting rid of that. But then when it comes down to get after that, where is the due process? Even drug addicts deserve due process. There's no due process, and I'm concerned that we are denying people their rights of due process. So in the end, if they shouldn't be here because we failed to have an immigration policy, then so be it. But at least they went through a process where I read about people that are going to court, immigration court, to go through the process, and ICE picks them up before they go through the process. This is not the due process and civil liberties that I thought my country had. So I come from that kind of a point of view. It's not a good time. My grandparents were not born in this country. We're all immigrants, but we need to fix a broken system, and I agree with that issue.
Okay, thank you all. Cindy is now going to bring up,
Are we going to talk about reproductive and
yeah, let's take a minute to talk about that.
Okay.
Would you like to say something about that?
Did you know that?
I had a feeling.
Okay, so thank you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't get a chance to talk about a bill that I'm very excited about, and I know that everybody signed on, and I know everyone else is excited about it. There's a bill called a location shield. So this would prohibit the sale of one's location data collected on cell phones and other devices. And when I take an Uber to a particular place, and I don't know that where I go is being sold to a data broker, and that information can then be used against me. So if I come to this state to get reproductive rights services, which are legal here in this state, and it isn't legal in Texas, I can be followed from the airport to the location. My location is then found, and the laws in Texas are bounty laws, and they can come in and try and bring actions against the people who provide those services. A lawyer and a doctor in New York was recently sued by that. So, and also a bill to keep data, to take sensitive data and make that data, prioritize that data, and that can't be sold either. My data, which includes my health data, my religious data, whatever, that is my information, and my hope is that we can protect that data and minimize the use of that data outside of what you intended it to be. So if you go on Google and you do a search, then they have your information, and from that information then gets sold. And all that results in bad things happening to people. So I have two bills. One is the data privacy, and included in the data privacy is a location shield bill. We are working on that. The steering and policy is working on it. It has come out of both the House and the Senate. I know both House and Senate are working on those bills, and I hope the next time we come back, we can talk about them.
Great.
So I serve on the Advanced Information Technology, Cybersecurity,
All of those.
ATAX. It's this every internet word you've ever heard in one committee name. And we've got the location shield bill before our committee now. The Senate side has reported out. The House side has not yet. Chair Trish Farley Bouvier from Pittsfield loves the bill, and we all love the bill. And So we're working to dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure we're able to get the outcome we're looking for in practice, not just on a technicality. It's not so simple. It turns out that location privacy is something that every group of people loves, but every individual gives away for free over and over and over again. Right? We all do it. We tell Facebook everything about us. Right? We go to LinkedIn and we give them our entire education and employment history. Right? We all do this. We go to Shaw's and we get the app so we can get 50 cents off on short ribs, and then in doing so, give them all. Right? We do it over and over and over again for nickels. We all do it. And so that makes it such an important bill, because left to our own devices, we're terrible at this stuff. Collectively, we understand it's important, right? And so it is a great bill. I have no doubt we'll get it out of committee eventually. But it's tricky to figure out how to make sure that companies like Facebook don't just turn off Facebook for Massachusetts, because they could. And we want to find a bill that is workable. Connecticut has a very weak privacy bill. It's the law, but it doesn't actually accomplish anything. We want to get something that works, and there's no question that Senator Cream's bill lays that foundation, and I'm sure we're going to get it out of committee.
I've been a lenient moderator, so we have not gotten to.
Can I just add just two
Sure,
things?
please.
So first of all, I want to salute Cindy, because Senator Cream, because we were at an ACLU briefing on the location, or at least a briefing on the location shield. At the ACLU has been pushing very hard, which is great, and they apparently did a poll, and I don't know if you heard this. I know you got there a little late. 93% of respondents are in favor of the location shield. That's 89% Republicans, 97% Democrats. It's bipartisan. So I think it's got a great chance. The other thing I just want to mention, and this was alarming to me, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, as far as information, and again, this gets to reproductive rights. So some of the obstetricians came in and wanted to talk, because they are finding that, apropos of the New York doctor, a lot of information that, again, for convenience and we think for better care, is now available across state lines through the electronic medical record. Now, I deal with the electronic medical record a lot because, as a doctor, and it's been a goal of everybody to make more and more records available so that your doctors can take care of you, especially if you got some care in Florida or you got some care in New York. But as a result of that, some of this information can fall into the wrong hands because your out-of-state information can be seen. So if you go to Massachusetts and get some reproductive care, and then you go back to your state of Texas, I don't know why we keep using Texas, but any of these red states, that information is available to the folks in Texas, the doctors. And again, if there's a bounty or if there's a requirement that you report, you could be in trouble. The other thing is just even the names of doctors on prescriptions. So some of these prescriptions that are for Plan B or for some of the medical abortion medicines, those can be searched, those can be found. And so there's been a lot of effort on the part of these obstetricians and other medical groups to try to move forward on that. And I imagine you're aware of that as well.
There's also another bill.
Yeah.
Which we're pushing, which is the SHIELD bill, and it would require labels for controlled substance for reproductive or gender-affirming care to include the name of the prescribing healthcare practice instead of the doctor. So we had doctors come before us, and it's pretty scary for them. And there's that bill that would protect doctors and other professionals who engage in providing legally protected healthcare services.
And we should also look into prohibiting state licensed insurers from denying care to anyone looking
Yes,
for
that's it.
gender affirming care. Yeah. So no, this is something we need to continue to support our LGBTQ community. Everyone that's included in there. It's obviously Pride Month. I hate and I hate that our federal administration waited for Pride Month to remove Harvey Milk's name off the ship this month, and it's awful. And he was trying to make a point, but luckily we live in one of the best states, and we should declare ourselves as a safe haven for LGBTQ community. Anyone.
Thank you for bringing that up. I have in my hand many questions from the audience here. So I don't think we'll try to have everybody respond to every question, but let me hit on a few of them. So let's see. One of them has to do with kind of the idea of resistance against the Trump administration and the multiple ways that they're impacting our society, and what kind of what forms of broader resistance do you think will be most effective in bringing about change? And do you see a role for what we might call resistance and protest in all this? Someone want to take that?
Yeah, and in fact, I would add every second Saturday from 11 to 1 in Coolidge Corner, we're out there doing the very public work of reminding folks that this is not normal and it's perfectly reasonable to say it out loud. In some ways, the most effective form of resistance right now are the lawsuits. The Trump administration has already lost over 200 lawsuits. I'm not sure why that doesn't get said more often. It's sort of shocking, right? That doesn't mean they're losing all of them, but the work of the attorneys general and of other advocacy lawyer groups and individual lawyers and so forth is tremendously important.
Agree.
Right. So that's a part.
I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Force Multiplier has a fund that is supporting groups that have been bringing lawsuits against the Trump administration. So,
and I also think this is sort of a two-part statement. It's incumbent on all of us to say out loud, but it's also incumbent on all of us not just to say it to each other in a lazy, agreeable way, but to really go out of our way to have honest and thoughtful and kind and calm conversations with the kind of people who aren't coming to this room, but also get to vote, also get to have their feelings made, right? We have to, we need more folks who agree with us, and that means we have to do the work of persuading folks one at a time. And that you don't get there by shouting at each other, and you don't get there by only talking to people who only agree with you. You really need to go out into community and have honest conversations where you listen at least as much as you speak, to win some hearts and minds back to compassion, and some hearts and minds back to democracy and rule of law. And if we can't get there, we're never going to be successful in our democracy as long as it lasts.
And join the other groups that are fighting for the environment, fighting for women's rights, and donating funds like your organization is doing to these causes.
Yeah, Erica Chenoweth talks a lot about that in her book on civil resistance, and how that kind of coalition and is really most effective. There's
Tom,
a
I think
question here that says...
the one other thing I would say, Tom, is that this is not normal, what we're seeing. And we have to keep saying that. We have to keep that awareness. I mean, it's very easy, and I think there was a headline in the Globe today about a frog and the boiling water. We have to keep pointing out that this is not normal. Do not let this become kind of something that we're accepting just by, it's hard not to, right? I mean, it's happening all around us, and it's happening so many times. But I was struck just the other day when the media was breathlessly reporting on the Trump-Musk feud. And, oh, wow, Trump now is going to withdraw all these subsidies to Tesla. It's like, that is not normal. You can't do that just because you're angry at somebody. Even if we don't like Mr. Musk, like, that's not right. The president can't just out of personal pique, deny some company that has duly gotten a contract, the money. It's just absolutely outrageous that even our media, who we rely so heavily on, by just reporting on these outrageous episodes every day has inured us to the abnormality of this. And again, the Supreme Court, the next time they allow a temporary injunction or deny a temporary injunction for the firing of somebody who is supposed to be keeping track and rooting out corruption while the case continues through the courts, because it's not some kind of terrible, irreparable harm while the case is happening. That's ridiculous. It should be the other way around. So it's just outrageous, and we are seeing this undermining of our structure.
He's
Got
a
another
doctor and a
question
lawyer,
here.
ladies and gentlemen.
You beat me to it.
Okay, in a different vein, there's a comment and a question here. I'm disappointed that one of the bluest states in the nation has one of the least transparent governments. What will you do to address this? Do you agree that that's the case? And anybody want to speak to that one?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Sorry. No, I honestly, sorry.
So
I really did miss.
kind of comment.
It is bedtime for my kid, so my wife was texting me, sorry.
Okay, I'm disappointed that one of the bluest states in the nation has one of the least transparent governments. What will you do to address this? And perhaps I should say, do you think that's true, too?
So, as someone who chairs the Rules Conference Committee, there have been many suggestions between the Senate and the House for giving more time and notice for people to know about a bill and see a bill. And so I do believe that there is potential for that kind of transparency. I will say that I keep hearing that they're the least transparent, but nobody tells me what that means. So I don't really know what that means, transparent. The Senate has been putting up their votes. The House says that their votes are transparent. I have never voted for anything that I've been ashamed, and I'm not ashamed to vote for anything. I put up on social media, except I don't think I want to use X anymore, the votes that I take in places that I go. So I know this isn't the time for that debate, but I'm not sure what that means when someone says we're the least transparent.
And just to add to the senator, I think everyone knows about the audit, and we can talk afterwards if you don't. But the auditor is looking to audit us, but she wants to do it personally, and I think this is the elephant in the room, so I'm gonna I guess jump out on it. Some of the things that she's looking for, they're already public. I mean, she's looking for our financial statements for the last 3 years. Those are actually public. That you can find those online. We are actually already audited, and she asked for our last 4 years of audits. That's actually also online. So, I mean, everyone has access to this information. So I don't know why she wants it personally sent to her. We're not really, I guess, fighting on this as much as she wants us to, and I think she's trying to make it more of a bigger deal. So we are audited. People go through our expenses. There's an auditor that goes through our expenses, through our financial statements, and I don't know. I understand that she wants to do it herself, and I know that the Senate and the House have tried to meet with her. Or have invited her to meetings, the leadership, and it doesn't seem like that's actually working. But I do think we're trying to do our part, and we are trying to be more transparent as the rules that we passed this year in the House. There are several things that are more transparent than it used to be. Now people get the summaries of the bills that are out there, and people can see, where the votes are going. So we are making changes. We understand that people and the voters spoke in November, and they wanted a change, and we did listen, and we did change that in our rules this year. And if anyone is personally looking from anyone's looking for my personal votes, I'm happy. Feel free to call me or look at my social media. I'm happy to be as transparent as possible. But I agree. I don't know what we're not doing. So thank you for the question, though, because we do hear it a lot, and we're not really fighting it. So I hate that that's out there, but we are trying to be good politicians.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to that one?
I mean, I'll just say I am new, right? So I'm just learning the system, and I must tell you that it's very interesting being in a place. I don't know if any of you have ever done something that the media has reported on, or been at an event that the media has reported on, and you read it in the paper the next day. You say, "Oh, great! I'm going to read about about it," and it doesn't always reflect what happened. Now, I'm not anti-media. I was a journalist in high school, college, and med school, but it is sometimes disturbing and frustrating to me, just as a newbie, when I read something or I look for something. Like, we passed cannabis in the House. Okay, I'm on the cannabis committee, so I was really excited, and we passed this bill that revamps the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, puts in some public health measures, puts in more accountability, adjusts the dispensary limit because a lot of dispensaries are going out of business, does it in a way that's balanced. We heard a lot of testimony from the small businesses saying we need a couple more, but we don't want it to be too big because we don't want big players to come in. We did that. It was really exciting to get this thing through, and we passed it. Do you know when that happened? Did anybody read about this? Did anybody see that? So one person so it was on Wednesday. Thursday morning, I looked through the Globe. Not much. There was one report on BUR that one of my friends told me that she heard that we had increased the number of dispensaries. Why were we doing this? And we were increasing the amount of pot that that young people could get. And I was like, that is not really accurate. So there is a mix. There's a mismatch sometimes between what you read and what you don't. I'm not saying that there's not a problem with transparency. I'm sure that there probably is, that people are referring to from the past. I am excited that the rules that we passed on the House side, and I know the Senate's passed similar rules, increase the transparency on votes in committee. It requires, I know that one of the concerns was that committees would hear bills and then the bill wouldn't get reported out. Now there's a 60-day limit on how many days it can wait, and then it has to be voted on once it's heard in committee. And there's one exception for 30 days sometimes if it's a especially important bill or something like that. So there are efforts, I think, afoot among the House and Senate leadership and membership to improve and make things more visible. But I'd also just encourage you to just, when you read the media, always look for what's the agenda that's being promoted, because it's not always entirely accurate. And that's as far as I guess I should go.
So I have a final question here before we close for tonight. And I think to something that Tommy said earlier in the evening, one way out of all of this is we have to win elections. We have to win elections for the governor and the attorney general. We have to take back the House on the national level. We're not going to get the Senate this time. So a simple question for you all. How can the Democrats come up with a simple but effective message to respond to and combat the Trump message? What do you think it is? What is the message?
All right, so if I knew that answer, that would be the $64 million question. But I do think we need people to believe that we are the party of the people. We need to be interested in the everyday things of making a living, bringing up a family, and those are the important, making enough money to support your family. And we need to be consistent that we are looking at those things, not aspirational things that we cannot deal with. And I think that we're seeing some changes. And I'm hopeful that we are electing new Congress people who are look around and say, what are people most interested in? I am extremely grateful and very fortunate that I represent Newton, Brookline, and Wellesley. The people in my district think very similarly to the way I think. But I am in a bubble, and there's not everyone in this state who thinks like we do. And I think we need to open our eyes and join forces with other of our colleagues and hear the issues that are important to them and not the ones only that are important to us.
Tommy, do you want to speak to that? Or
Yeah, next week, as we do at the beginning of every summer, my wife and I are shipping my son down to North Carolina. And just saying the word North Carolina, people immediately get an idea in their mind. And it's wrong, the idea that people get in their mind when they're in Massachusetts and they think of North Carolina, right? The fact of the matter is North Carolina, politically, in terms of education, is remarkably diverse. It's not a bunch of poor rednecks, driving around in old pickup trucks. There's definitely some of that. The point is that, Trump ran, he certainly didn't write the ad, but he ran it, what might be the ad of the century thus far, right? Kamala is for they/them, Trump's for you. And, you can argue whether or not that's fair or not, right or wrong, but the fact is it resonated with a huge number of voters. And we on the left like to play demographic bingo with our voters. Did we get the Latino vote? Did we get the black vote? How about the women? How about the highly educated? The fact is it resonated with all of them. It resonated with all of them because what they see is a Democratic Party that is picking off little bits and pieces of certain people and saying that's what's important. Instead of saying everybody's important. Everybody's important. We are not doing a good job communicating that in our words, and we're not doing an especially good job communicating that in our policies. I don't think it's because it's not what we believe. I think we do believe it, but we've sort of written off 40%. They'll never vote for us, so let's not worry about policy for them. And we're chasing this purity on the other side instead of just fighting for everybody. And I think we need to just get back to that. Not write bills for certain kinds of people, not have policies that address this sliver over here. Let's get back to arguing that everyone deserves the opportunity to earn a living for their family. Everyone deserves freedom and safety. Everyone deserves the opportunity for education. And we say everyone, we need to mean everyone. And I think we've come away from that, and I hope we find it. I hope we find it real soon.
Bill?
And just to add on to my colleagues, we need to focus on the working class. We need to remember, I am still, and I talked about with someone today that I still can't believe he won the popular vote. And that just shocks me. And it just tells me that people still worry about what's going in their pocket. It doesn't matter, they're worried about how policy is going to affect them. And there are a lot of people that were worried that they kept hearing Trump and how he was going to help them financially and how things were going to be better. We need to get back to taking care of those that work hourly and just the working class. I think those are the people that, by focusing on that, I think we can get the House back. I really do. It just, yeah.
Thank you. Greg?
Well, we do. Democratic Party is both is a victim of its success. right? We're a huge tent. And we're pride ourselves in that. And in Massachusetts, perhaps it's even more true. Everybody calls us a blue state, but when you look at the blue, it's a lot of different hues of blue, right? And this is something that has become even more clear to me. I kind of knew it, but being a legislator in a group of 160 members in the House, alongside great people who represent different areas of the state, I am every day reminded that every community does not look like Newton and Brookline. And that's okay, right? Because that's what the democratic process is, small d, democratic process. That's what our system of government, as messy as it is, it's better than all the rest because everybody is represented. And, you can say, oh, politicians are just trying to, they won't vote for that because they don't want to, lose at the next election. That's exactly how it's supposed to work, right? So when I look over at very thoughtful, very good, reasonable colleagues who are from districts where they are nervous about voting on a particular issue that might appeal to one special interest group, and the leadership of our body knows that and tries to avoid putting them in that position, I'm not as depressed or despairing. I actually have hope because I know that what they're doing is trying to maintain this blue majority that we have and that we're all proud of, and that helps everybody by being successful. So if you take that step further to the national level, I think we have to have a big tent and not be apologetic about it, but we also have to have our priorities clear and be able to give a message and stick to a message that speaks to that larger populace that we all aspire to represent. And it's going to take discipline. It really is. Ronald Reagan was famed for saying, right, the 11th commandment is that Republicans don't speak ill of other Republicans. We should try to follow that to a degree. Another thing that's always been...
But about the Democrats, let's keep speaking ill of the Republicans.
Right. No, I'm saying that the Democrats can do a better job of staying on message, staying unified, not taking the bait sometimes. As much as we'd like to stand up and fight, maybe sometimes we have to wait and find our moment. And I think that it's harder now because of the way that the media landscape has become so balkanized and the echo chambers that we all know are out there. But if we can stick to message and be disciplined and be kind to each other and not eat our own and not have the circular firing squad, I don't know how many more cliches I can say, but I think that'll be the recipe for success. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final word, Representative Honan.
Final word, the Dean of the House. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here with you all. I was hoping that with all the damage he seems to be doing to all the programs we care about, that would really help the Democratic Party. So while we need an inspirational leader, our party needs to find someone. The message, as was said by my friends here, would be a working class message, like the best social program is a job. Need to stress education and employment and training and lift everyone like in a Tip O'Neill kind of fashion. Just continue to stay with what we care about. But if at the end of this, all these cuts in the Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs, if that continues and he then gives it all away in a tax break to very affluent and wealthy people, that might do it. So my focus here right now is not answering your question. It's the damage that he's going to do. But for us as a Democratic Party, we need to work real hard, continue to build it up. You need to call your friends in the red states who might be voting in some of these upcoming elections, and they might be people you can talk to. Sometimes you can't talk to them. Sometimes you can't talk to your childhood friends. But that's what we need to do, organize, rally. I haven't seen Obama too much out there. I'd like to see more of him, rallying people. What's
Give him a
that?
shout. I'll give him a shout.
Give him a shout. Thank you, Tom. Anyway, hey, on behalf of all of our friends here, thanks for coming out. Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, thank you all. So listen, I hope this isn't just a one-off event. I think what we're trying to do is create a connection here. We've got a couple of handouts. One of them has ways to contact your representatives so that you can lift up your voices. Another one has QR codes for some of the bills that we talked about today. So I hope you'll use them. This Saturday, do we know what's coming? No Kings. No Kings. So it's Flag Day. It is Trump's birthday. He is holding a parade at our expense. And we can all stand up to that authoritarianism. There's an event in Coolidge Corner from, I think it is 2 to 4. There's an event downtown starting at Copley Square. So take a look, nokings.org. You can sign up for it. Thank you all for coming.